All right, let's picture a boxing match. In one corner, you've got the heavyweight champion of the world. In the other, a featherweight who pretty much only fights in his home gym. That is the kind of mismatch we're talking about here when we compare the militaries of the United States and Iran. But you know, this isn't a story about a quick knockout. It's about two totally different ways of fighting.
To really wrap your head around the scale here, you just have to follow the money. And wow, the numbers are just staggering. The United States has the largest defense budget in the world, and it's not even close. This kind of cash funds the most advanced military technology ever created. We're talking everything from stealth fighters to a global network of satellites.
Okay, now let's flip that coin. Look at Iran's side of the ledger. Their defense budget is just a tiny fraction of the US's, ranking 36th in the world. To put that into perspective for you, Iran's entire military budget for a year is less than what the US spends in a single week. That financial reality, it shapes every single decision their military has to make.
So this creates a really fundamental problem, right? When a country outspends you more than 90-1, you can't compete head-on. It's just not possible. You don't even try to build more aircraft carriers or better stealth jets. Your answer has to be something completely different. It's not about matching force with force.
So let's get into our first section and see how this incredible difference plays out in conventional terms. It really is a tale of two very, very different militaries, and nowhere is that clearer than when we look up at the sky and talk about air power.
I mean, just look at this. The sheer scale of the American advantage here is massive. We're not talking about a small difference. The US has over 13,000 military aircraft. Iran, just over 500. That's an advantage of more than 20-1.
And this weakness is really well documented. A big chunk of Iran's air force is made up of these old American and Soviet planes from before the 1979 revolution. Decades of sanctions have made it incredibly hard for them to get spare parts, let alone upgrade anything.
Okay, so if a direct conventional fight is completely off the table, what do? This is where Iran has been forced to get, well, creative. They've had to develop a completely different kind of strategy.
And that brings us to this absolutely crucial concept, asymmetric warfare. It's a pretty simple idea, really, but its implications are profound. You don't play to your opponent's strengths. You find and attack their weaknesses. You avoid a fair fight at all costs. This idea? It's the very backbone of Iran's entire defense doctrine.
So let's take this idea to the sea. On paper, the US Navy's dominance looks absolute. 11 aircraft carriers to Iran's 0. 83 advanced destroyers to Iran's 0. In a big, open ocean battle, there's no contest.
But see, Iran has zero intention of fighting that battle. Instead, they've invested in a totally different kind of navy. You need to think less about massive warships and more about a silent swarm of smaller, lethal boats and subs designed specifically for the crowded, shallow waters of the Persian Gulf.
This is a perfect example of their strategy in action. These small Ghadir-class submarines can literally just lie in wait on the seabed, almost invisible to sonar. Their goal isn't to control the whole ocean. It's to use their geography and specialized gear to turn a vital waterway, like the Strait of Hormuz, into a potential trap for much bigger, much more expensive ships.
This brings us right back to the air. If your jets can't compete in a dogfight, how do you possibly protect your country from the world's most advanced air force? Well, Iran applies that same asymmetric thinking to its air defense.
Instead of trying to win battles up in the sky, they try to make the skies too dangerous to even fly in. They used mobile missile batteries, like the Cordadat-15, that can be moved around really quickly. They use shoot-and-scoot tactics, fire a missile, then immediately relocate to avoid getting hit back. And they use their own mountainous terrain as natural cover, creating radar blind spots to hide all these assets. It's a deadly game of hide-and-seek on the ground.
Now, on the offensive side, Iran has poured a ton of resources into another asymmetric tool, drones. Drones give them significant eyes in the sky and strike capability at a really low cost and with zero risk to a pilot. They've been working on this program since the 1980s and now have this large, diverse arsenal of both surveillance and attack drones.
But maybe the most important part of this whole strategy is their missile arsenal. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Iran has built the biggest and most varied missile arsenal in the entire region. This is really how they make up for a weak air force, by developing a powerful, long-range strike capability that can threaten targets hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away.
So, how does all this fit into the bigger strategic picture? Let's take a look at the regional chessboard. Because these military doctrines don't exist in a vacuum, right? They're shaped by where these forces are actually positioned.
The U.S. strategy is all about forward presence. It relies on this huge network of long-standing bases all over the Middle East, which allows it to project air and naval power rapidly across the entire region.
At any given moment, there are about 40,000 U.S. service members in the region. This footprint includes major, permanent bases in key places like Qatar and Kuwait. Bahrain is home to the Navy's entire Fifth Fleet, and U.S. carrier strike groups are constantly cycling through. This gives the United States an unparalleled ability to respond to threats pretty much anywhere in the region with overwhelming force.
So what does this all boil down to? It's not just about counting up tanks and planes. It's really about understanding two fundamentally different philosophies of power.
On one side, you've got the United States, which is defined by its overwhelming technology, its global power projection, and a massive, massive budget. And on the other side, you have Iran, defined by its asymmetric doctrine, its focus on regional control, and its development of low-cost, high-impact weapons.
And that leaves us with a final thought on the nature of modern conflict itself. You know, when David faces Goliath, the rules of the fight just change completely. It really raises the question of what truly makes a military powerful. Is it having the most advanced weapon, or is it having the cleverest strategy for the weapons you've got?